Olympic medalist, European champion and World Cup star. That's just some of the titles we can call our Irish females these days. Over the coming weeks, we're going to shine a spotlight on the untold stories that took our country's elite to the very top of the world stage.
I'm Kayleigh Trappe and this is talkSPORT Ireland's MNAsplaining.
Joining us today is one of the country's best known Gaelic footballers. After wowing on the national stage, winning 2 All-Ireland titles, our guest then took her personal journey down under to play AFLW before playing with the Ireland Sevens rugby team. So I am here with my next guest, Vikki Wall. We're going to break down the wall with Vikki Wall. Oh, sorry Vikki, I do love a fun. How are you?
I'm
What's
great,
crack?
how are you?
Not too bad. How'd you find getting in this morning?
Yeah, not a bother. It didn't take me too long.
We probably should have given you a lift because we're claiming from the same part.
Now, yeah, exactly.
Now, I'm a blow-in. I'm not claiming residency to Meath and definitely not to Dunboyne. Should I?
Yeah, I suppose there's probably not too much rivalry between Trim and Dunboyne. But
Oh, shots fired already.
more football now. I don't know about Trim and the football and the ladies, but no shots fired. But we haven't played them in many a moon.
Vikki, can you just leave, please? Because I'm highly insulted. No, I'm only messing. It's great to have you in. Thanks you so much for coming in.
Thanks, man.
I'm going to start by talking GAA. Obviously, your bread and butter. What are your earliest memories of GAA from the get-go before obviously all the wins and everything else that came along with it?
So I actually probably started a little bit later. It was my younger sister Sarah who started with Dunboyne, and I was playing soccer with the lads team, trying to emulate my father's career, trying to live up to his expectations. But we had a game that was cancelled one day, so I went down, didn't have an idea of the rules, probably bounced it about 3 times in a row. But I think the fact that it was a girls' team and being playing on a lads' team, although they looked after me, there was certainly an appeal for the girls and getting to know different girls. There was 2 schools in Dunboyne. I was in the Gael school, and a lot of the girls from the national school probably on the team, so kind of got to mix, and been playing ever since then. Yeah,
it's a great sport, I think, as a child to do, to kind of for social elements of as well, of not just the sporting side of things. I do think you were late in starting. I was 23. Yeah, I was 23 when I started, but I actually started for the social side of it and then made loads of friends out of that. I'm sure you're the same. It was probably nice to play with your sister, was it as well?
Yeah, 100%. Playing all the way through and underage, and was living with one of the girls who I started playing under 10s with and county and the whole way up, so there's definitely that element of it as well. And I know my younger sister moved to Rome for a year, and how she found accommodation, job, everything was through the Rome GAA.
Stop.
So it was funny when she was talking out for Rome, but that element of it is massive.
It's class. I did a bit of coaching under 16s, and I find though that especially with the ladies, that the drop off rates around that time were kind of quite high, and maybe interest was gone or whenever college kicked in. How did you keep up your interest and motivation, or did you find it hard to see maybe some other people leaving or whatever it was at the time?
Yeah, I was probably a bit different if I just couldn't understand why people weren't doing it, if that makes sense. When we were younger, the only punishment Mum could give us was not letting us go to training. There was nothing else that worked that would annoy us that much. So not being allowed to go to training and sitting at the front door screaming out the letterbox that we were this wasn't our family, because my mum wouldn't let us go to training, so that was always a bit of crack. But I probably couldn't understand why people were leaving, if that makes sense, because of how much I loved it and how much I enjoyed it. But I do know a lot of my friends that dropped off at 16, 17 for various different reasons probably regretted it a little bit later on, and then are actually searching for that kind of community element in whether now they're doing yoga, Pilates, whatever it is, but when you look at it, it's still that they want to be in a group of people doing exercise and enjoying themselves. So I think there definitely is a lot more now, I think, for that 18 maybe to 23 gap, that if people aren't taking it competitively or seriously, that there probably is more access to teams that are social, and I think that's pretty important as well.
Yeah, and a lot of them probably end up coming back, taking a few years out and coming back, and there's nothing you love to see more than just that reignited spark. Talk to me about Dunboyne. So we'll get to Meath in a minute, but the rise to fame with Dunboyne is incredible. My fella was telling me about this last night. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Tell me, I suppose at the beginning when maybe you weren't winning as many games, you were in junior, I'm assuming, and you won junior, and then it got all kicked off. How did that come to be?
We were, I suppose I was probably 15, 16, and then a lot of the girls had gone travelling to Australia, London, you name it. There's teachers, all that type of stuff. So we actually kind of didn't have a team for a year or two, and some of the girls went and played with Drumshocklin and other rival teams and stuff like that, just to play sport and play football. But then we came back and we were junior A. We lost it in Saney, I think it was, in a semi-final one of the years, and then from then we went on and won the Junior All-Ireland in 2015, and then the intermediate All Ireland in 2017 and got absolutely annihilated by Dunamore Abbey, Dunamore Abbey in up in Cork. So that was good crack. That was in senior, but it was savage. Like, as in, I didn't think from the time period of like August to December when I was in sixth year we had a game like every Sunday. So it was always good crack trying to sneak out of the house and go for a few pints without mum seeing.
Absolutely. What changed there? Like, I suppose to go from junior all the way like up within a couple of years, did you get new management in, or was it just a different perspective?
We had two different managements throughout that, like those few years of success. But I think it was an amalgamation of those younger girls coming up that had won everything, if that makes sense.
Okay,
and then there was older girls.
You can always rely on the minors.
That had probably that want, but never had the team that stuck together at that time. So there was a good mix. There was, people in their late 20s, early 30s, and then 16, 17-year-olds. And just, there was obviously a lot of natural talent there, but just everyone kind of, those few years of sticking together and coming up and then like spending a ridiculous amount of time with each other always helps as well. Yeah.
Were you ever tempted to kind of pack it in and go travelling or do other things? Or were you always just like, I'm committed to this and this is my favourite thing?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think there was that time when I was in college when people were going on J1s and things like that, but just even when things weren't going great with Dunboyne, Meath, whatever it was, I just think it never really appealed to me more than playing for Dunboyne or Meath at that time. I think, some of the girls would say they regretted not going when they were younger and stuff like that, but I suppose at the moment I don't have that regret. So
you got it in there in other ways as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Fantastic. With Meath then, when did that start? When did you first start with Meath?
I would have started with Meath in 2015. So that was we were played all the way up, but that was the senior panel in 2015. And it definitely was nowhere near what it is now, just in terms of like access to pitches, access to everything that we do have access to now. And even just, I think the first year I was in there was a turnover of 60 odd players because people were in and out the whole time. And it was probably a bit of a pivotal stage for the county.
Do you find it kind of bittersweet in a way? Would it have been that the more successes you got, the more access to things you got, the more you were taken seriously, or was it just like an ongoing thing that as the years went on it just built itself up?
Definitely a combination of both. I think there obviously throughout the years, the GPA or the WGPA at the time would have been pushing for standards across female sports, so camogie and LGFA, but I think sometimes, and it's the case in a lot of female sports that or in sports in general, that females have to do something extraordinary to get the same attention that an average male athlete might do, if that makes sense. And obviously we weren't supposed to win by the script, let's say, in 2021, so I know that drove a lot of attention and limelight to LGFA in Meath, and obviously spiked interest in the county, which is amazing, but I just think it's sad that it probably took that for it to ignite that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can totally understand what you mean. It's quite like frustrating in one way to know that it took that to get to there. Did you find it frustrating whenever, like, I suppose when I was watching the games and things like that, I heard the word underdog used quite a lot when you're going in against Dublin? Did you feel like an underdog that day, or were you like, it's a level playing field, we're all out here for the same win and we could achieve the same thing?
No, I definitely think that in 2021, like that year, we definitely had a lot of belief and like probably riding that wave of momentum, and obviously like lack of expectation from everybody else bar ourselves, if that makes sense. But like we just had so much fun that year, if that makes sense. Like, as in, obviously we'd lost 2 All-Irelands, won the third one in 2020 for in intermediate, got promoted. So, people probably didn't expect us to do much. It had been a trend in ladies football that one team went up to come straight back down in the senior grade. So yeah, I think like within the squad and the panel, we always had a lot of belief, but like we just had so much crack and fun that year that, everything on the pitch kind of reflected how we all felt off the pitch as well.
Yeah, speaking of like crack and fun, what would you have done now? Like, I'm just trying to think of bonding sessions and sing-alongs and whatever else. I hear from your counterparts in the team that you're good crack. So have you any like little like songs or anything like that you would have sang, or bonding sessions that you'd love to do? Pint and Marcy's or whatever it is.
Yeah, I was going to say a post game pint and Marcy's and a bit of shy talk is always a good way to go. But there wouldn't be anything specific we would do. It's always good crack when some of the 17, 18-year-olds, or I'll say 18-year-olds
for the sake
of come to life and then rock up to training on the Tuesday, with a little bit of glint in their eyes, and you kind of get to know people's personalities and stuff. But like that is majority of it is like getting to know people and like you spend so much time with these people and observing them, making understanding what makes them tick. Like we used to play a game, you know, Freak of the Week, like but in a positive manner of understanding like what makes you tick versus me, like as in polar opposites of how we operate, and like what people do the day before a game could be so different if you were to put a camera on two of the girls. Like if I use Emma Duggan as an example and then somebody else like maybe Moira O'Shaughnessy, their days might completely differ, but like it obviously works for them because they're performing on the day and stuff like that. So we just have great crack of ripping it into each other. And obviously, you know, people, there was great stories of people kind of getting left behind in different pubs and bars and setting off alarms the next morning and stuff like that. So we've lots of fun, but like the element of getting to know each other outside of football and sport is class.
It's great to strike. I always think it's great to strike a balance, and sometimes with GAA I notice it's like it's all or nothing. It's like all year it's so strict, and then when you win or whenever you're given a little bit of time off, it's like a serious blowout.
Yeah.
Would you be very strict on yourself, or would you be able to find a nice balance between social life, whether it's just even going for coffees and different things like that, or going on nights out?
Yeah, I definitely, it's something I would have probably like reflected and highlighted in my own life. I think actually shifting from GAA to professional sport, I found a much bigger difference. It was very much a case of like, you know, the whole drinking, not drinking. I think it's actually like stricter in GAA than it is in professional sport. It's very much, you know, it's your body, you have to look after yourself. What you do is only going to affect you, if that makes sense, in professional sport. Whereas in GAA, it's very much, you know, black and white, you can't drink and stuff like that, which I then think maybe has some kind of negative effects, like you said, of when you get the chance to go, everyone goes ham rather than being able to just enjoy a few casual drinks here or there. So yeah, I think there's definitely a balance, and I wouldn't say I have it locked in just yet, but I kind of find that balance of like allowing yourself guilt-free time to celebrate and enjoy, but also being able to switch back on and things like that.
Perfect. Speaking of guilt-free, how did you feel about when you decided to go to the AFLW, and you're probably obviously aware that it might affect you? Did you know that going into it, or were you trying to work both?
I think I left straight after the Wednesday after we won the All-Ireland in 2022, so it was weird when we joke about it. We had a few drinks. The girls did a pub crawl in Meath on the Wednesday, and I joined them at the last bit after a bit of packing in Dunboyne in the clubhouse. And the joke is, you know, that I attended my own funeral because it was just bizarre. Like everyone was kind of like, you know, getting a bit upset, crying and everything, and I was like, lads, like I'm going to Australia for a few months to play football, like it's not the end of the world and that stuff. But in terms of guilt about it, I think there's always a guilt associated with it, even when you're over there and doing well and being successful. I think the gra that we all have for the sport that we've grown and played our entire lives up here, like I think there's always going to be that contrast of, you know, you talk to the girls that are over in Oz and, you know, they're saying, oh, you know, about football, if you're getting the chance to play back here and do both. And then the ones that maybe want to go over, the thoughts of leaving your county. And it's very different. You know, there's girls going over from junior, intermediate, senior counties that can have bigger or lesser effects on their teams when they go. So I think
I suppose with you it was probably a reliability thing. They were like, oh no, we've lost our star player or whatever like that, and I'd say it's nearly not fair to put that on you. But did you find that when you were over there that you were still always like club comes first as well, I'll try and get home as much as I can, or I'll try and get back and forth, or what was it?
Yeah, I definitely tried to squeeze as many games in as possible. I played one championship game for Dunboyne last year, which I was delighted about. I think just the transition of, like, obviously I tried sevens, came back into AFLW straight away from that. I think this year playing with Meath and stuff like that, I'm just a lot more grateful to get to spend time with the girls and just to play sport that I absolutely love and adore. Not that I don't love and adore the other sports that I've tried or am trying, but just I think GAA and the team that we have, like, there's a difference between playing with people that you've grown up with your entire life versus, I suppose, maybe some strangers, if that makes sense.
But change is good, and I think it's always good to adapt. And I suppose you committed your life to sport at this point, and you had said, did you start a course in DCU and then it didn't go through it? Am I right?
That was a period after the 2021 All-Ireland, so I went full ham. There was a bit of we all felt a little bit of a lull period, I think, after 2021, after winning the pinnacle of your sport. But I know a few of us definitely felt a low and felt kind of a bit of a, you know, what's my purpose, as in we'd spent that entire few years, I'm going to say, building up to that, and then it kind of is a massive come down, and obviously there was a bit of hype around that game, so it was kind of a weird to be thrust into that, if that makes sense. And then I dropped out of a master's, went through a breakup, so I just decided I'd just do it all at once rather than
come on, bad things come in threes. I'm sure there's something else through in.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than doing one at a time. So that was definitely a transitional period. But
looking back now, though, I'd imagine you think that was the right decision at the time.
Yeah, it was. I think it was just weird because my like identity and personality was not giving up on anything, and even if something's hard, like just playing through and going on with it, but I kind of had to take a step back and be like, this is actually not even like serving me in any way, shape or form. So it was definitely like a weird one to not give up on something, but to kind of maybe just change my wants, if that makes sense.
What did Dad say?
Yeah, that conversation was good in the kitchen. It was back and forth, and maybe a few raised voices of things like that to get a few points across. But no, I think once I'm happy, they're happy.
I'm sure he's happy days now. If it makes you feel any better, I told my father I was leaving teaching to be a lip syncer, so that,
I haven't had to have that conversation just yet, so I'm doing okay.
Yeah, that didn't go down too well. In terms of training wise, I suppose I would see you as like a physical player, and I used to admire you because I had this thing, like I had a lot of body struggles growing up, and I was always like, I want to be strong, not skinny. And I remember seeing you play, actually I think it was the year after at the final, and you were playing in Monaghan in a weird pitch. I don't know what the rationale behind it was, but I remember seeing you come out and I was like, oh my goodness, I love her physique, I love how strong she is. Like that would be something I would find inspiring. How do you find, like, do you put a lot of work into strength and conditioning to get like that, or would it be a bit of everything?
Yeah, I suppose. I think like if you talk to any sports person, female, male, female, I think it's always kind of a balance and a journey for everyone individually. And whether it's, like you said, some people are wanting to be stronger, wanting to be fitter. There's always something you're like aspiring to be like somebody else, if that makes sense. And I think only in the last few years, like I've come to like love how strong I am and love how like that impacts my game and how I can use that to contribute, if that makes sense. I used to focus more on things that I couldn't do, and I was quick off the mark, but maybe endurance and stuff like that, and then putting all of that time into getting fitter and doing that type of side of it, whereas then being like, okay, but you actually are good at your strength scores and things like that, so why not further that. I think there's definitely just even in female sports, I think even like commentary and stuff like that, I think again it's getting better, but there's still like reservations of people to like compliment a woman on being strong or physical, or like there's some words I think can be negatively placed in female sports, but they shouldn't be negative, if that makes sense. Like we still view them as negative words to be strong and physical, and how you're described post game and stuff like that. But I think it's definitely shifting, and even personally just trying to get better at using those adjectives, I suppose. Yeah,
I feel like it's so strange if you call a man strong and built, that's such a compliment, but if you say it to a woman, you're nearly hesitant to say it, and maybe they're hesitant to hear it as well. But like that's always been something I aspire to be, and I suppose you're probably a great advocate for that. With the training, GAA versus AFLW, like what would be the differences there? What would you find when you went over to Australia? Like, whoa, this is a culture shock in terms of training.
I wouldn't even say it's a culture shock. It actually feels like a luxury, if that makes sense. Just because you're getting to train at 7-8 in the morning to be finished at maybe 2, 3 or 4, whatever time it is, depending on the day. And then you get, you have a lot more spare time. Your recovery is at your doorstep, like, in the club, everything's ticked off the list. It's so easy to do those things, if it makes sense. Whereas here, you could be finished training at 10, half 10, getting home, like trying to fit in, like if it's an ice bath, sauna, recovery, whatever you want to do post-training. It's like, it's a little bit harder. It's not, it is doable. Obviously everyone is doing it, but there's just more moving parts and there's things like that. So I wouldn't say there's a huge difference in terms of the levels of training. I just think it's access.
Over there it's your job as well,
exactly,
whereas here it's like you have to fit it in after your job, and I know that a lot of girls might not actually keep it up because they can't do both, or they're coming down the road from Dublin to try and get to train, it's just impossible. When you're over in Australia, like what were some of the things outside of sport that you love or love doing? I'm sure coffee breaks and everything were incredible.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm definitely a creature of habit, so I think over in Australia I loved getting up, same coffee shop every morning. Well, I vary it sometimes. There's probably 3 or 4 coffee shops in rotation.
She's adventurous. What's your order?
Coconut cappuccino, but over there some shops don't do coconut, so it's an almond cappuccino in some of my places.
I'd be more of an oat milk girl myself.
I can't get on board the oat milk now. But and then I was living beside the beach, so I used to go for a walk by the beach, and I'd probably run into our coach most mornings. He lived where I was, and he'd be like, Vikki, like, I'm tracking what walk are you doing this morning, like what's your kilometers, just taking the mick out of me. But I was doing a course in sports psychology as well, because the visa I was on, I wasn't able to work outside of the club on top of, let's say, doing what we were doing. So I was doing this course in sports psychology, so I'd perch myself up and do that for a few hours, and then big fan of reformer Pilates when I could fit it in, so that was on the list. And then just, I suppose, socialising with some of the girls over there and stuff.
I don't know how you fit it all in. I know you were saying there you were doing a course in sports psychology. You were very inspired by your sports psychologist in home.
Yeah, Kayleigh Trappe, yeah.
Is that kind of one of the reasons you wanted to go on and do that, or is there a reason that you wanted to have something on the side just to have in the back pocket, or?
Well, I suppose for myself, like, as in, it is getting more full time over there, the AFLW, but there still is, down periods and time off, and I just not being able to do a bit extra work outside it. Like, I just wanted to be busy, if that makes sense. But then going back to like the game we had, like Freak of the Week, like I just love observing all the girls and playing across different codes and sports and teams and stuff like that. I just love observing people, like as in seeing what works for people, and even just seeing, some of the players that are unbelievable in training but then can't perform on game day and stuff like that. So it's just an interest of myself, but then to be able to apply it to myself in sport and stuff like that is
because you'd mentioned as well on, I suppose, whenever Meath were coming up, you were saying that like it was important for you to understand what the role of every player is, so that you could play at your best. Do you feel like the sports psychologist you had helped you understand, and that actually helped you as a team to be better?
Yeah, I think Kelly did a lot of work with us, and we'd be doing Zoom calls from our kitchens on a Monday evening, and being like, geez, I wish the game was today, like tonight. She'd have you that motivated, like, and it's not, she doesn't do, I think she just has a way of making it so accessible, if that makes sense. Like, as in, obviously she has all the academia to support it, but she just makes it accessible and personal to us as players and our team. And I feel like that had been what we'd been missing before with different sports psychologists that had come in. They hadn't probably gotten to know us on an individual basis and stuff like that. So it
could be more of a tick box type thing instead of an actual worthwhile.
Yeah, exactly. Actually treating it as important as our nutrition or S&C, whatever it was. And I think buy-in from management helped that as well.
Yeah, because sometimes I feel like you can talk the talk all day, but actually applying it and making it useful is can get lost.
It's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, exactly. It is, because we can waste so much time, even with like team talks, whatever else. You're like, what are we all getting out of this? We need to make sure that there's you're
having meetings for the sake of having meetings.
Exactly, and there's nothing worse. I'm going to ask you a few questions from. So I'm going to call this Up Against the Vikki Wall. Breaking down Vikki Wall. Ireland versus Oz, right? Coffee. Ireland or Oz?
I gotta give it to Oz.
Oof. Takeaways?
Oz.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a massive sushi fan, and Oz wins on that one.
Oh, so no spice bags for you?
I wouldn't be craving one, no, put it that way.
I've never had one actually in my life, so I can't really give out. The tin whistle or the didgeridoo?
I'll give it to the tin whistle.
Pubs?
Ireland.
100%, you can't go wrong with that. Acai bowls?
We only had this conversation the other day. I'm not an acai fan. I don't really enjoy it.
Oh,
more eggs on toast, and that'll do me.
I was agreeing with you on the coffee thing, but now I'm not too sure. Home and away or Fair City?
I will go for Fair City.
Carly Minogue or Enya?
Enya.
Oh, hot box sauna or St Kilda? Is that the feature with it?
Yeah. I'll go for St Kilda. Yeah.
And there's a hot box sauna in Meath.
Yeah, there is. I know, and we go there quite often after training. So I'm going to create a few enemies here.
So I actually haven't added up the stats there, but I think she's more on the Australian side. But anyway, that's.
The latter few brought me back to Ireland, I think.
So I remember seeing that you were sin bin for barging.
Which time?
Just going to go straight. Oh, I know, a few times. And obviously with female sports, it's non-contact. Is there any kind of reason with this rugby sevens and even with the AFLW that you were intrigued to try a sport that's more contact or more physical?
Yeah, I suppose like there was never really like rugby in my school or around the kind of localish area until the last few years. I know like Navan and Ashburn and Ratoath and stuff have rugby clubs now for girls and stuff like that, but just with the AFLW, like it is, and it's very similar to GA in the sense of, the movement of the ball and patterns and stuff like that. But yeah, the physicality of it, you actually get to utilise what you're working on in the gym, on the field, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like I feel like every county in Ireland is doing significant work on S&C and getting their girls stronger to be able to play football, but then to maybe not be able to utilise it as much, if that makes sense. So
I think it's like they don't want it's to teach the juveniles that way. Is it? That's where it's coming from, I think.
Yeah, I'm not fully sure. I've strong opinions maybe on the standards of refereeing and stuff, but I think I'll withhold that until I'm retired. I don't think I need to make any more enemies, but yeah, I think it's a pity that, you know, we're putting in all this work to then not be able to utilise it.
Yeah, because I think it's a strength on the pitch, and it's also a lot about perspective with referees too. It's not really black and white sometimes, and I feel like you could be hard done by. I remember my very first game, and I was absolutely useless, so I don't know why I'm telling this to Vikki Wall, but I got yellow carded, and I remember just being like, why? And they were like, you're too physical, and I really didn't understand how, and I was like, if the lads can do it, why can't I? But I understand there's different reasons for that as well. But would you have any interest? I know that they're talking about the compromised rules game coming back in for the men's. Would you like to see it for women?
Yeah, it'd be great crack. I think even they were talking about doing an AFLW game of the Irish players versus the Aussie players as well. So that would be interesting as well. It'd be funny to see who would come up with the upper hand on that one. Yeah. Bragging rights. But yeah, no, I think it'd be cool. It'd be interesting to see it, especially done on the women's side. For sure.
Talk to me about Rugby Sevens. How did it all come about?
Yeah, there's a few Instagram DMs, a few coffee meetups, all the very formal things that happen in sport. But yeah, I suppose took the opportunity. Really enjoyed it. I've never done as much travel in my life over a short period of time.
Were you here, there, and everywhere?
We were Hong Kong, Singapore, Perth, Vancouver. So there was a lot of places ticked off the bucket list. But yeah, it was a massive learning curve, and hopefully has probably made me a better person and player outside of sport.
Yeah, how did you feel, I suppose, about falling short of actually the Paris Olympics itself? Like, were you disheartened there, or you're like, you can't get everything, or what was your mentality like around that time?
Yeah, I definitely was disheartened on the day of. It is obviously, you know, you have to laugh at some stages, but I was laughing the day the squad got announced. You know, we went into our meetings and stuff like that, and was at home, and I was with Jack, and then after that, so I was like, right, we'll just get out of the house. We'll go for a bit of brunch, and went to Two Boys Brew in Phibsborough.
Oh, I love it. They're great.
Local, yeah, so good. But I walked in and I saw one of my friends on a, maybe we'll say, somewhat coffee date with someone who I probably hadn't expected to see. So it gave me a great laugh, and we ended up sitting beside them having the crack and talking. And I was like, I didn't make the Olympics, by the way, and it kind of got brushed aside because we were laughing at the whole scenario. So like little moments like that obviously bring you back down to reality.
Yeah,
and
little anecdotes.
You have the crack, and you're quickly humbled in my house. Like, you wouldn't get much sympathy.
No.
So you know,
practical Irish parents.
Practical, yeah. No, but yeah, like it was obviously hard. But I think I'm glad it happened in the sense of, you know, I haven't been told no a lot in sport, and been fairly privileged to be starting on majority of the teams that I play on, or have played on. So like, I'm very, very aware of the privilege that is in sport, and to be, you know, even this year over in Australia, you know, even I look at Niamh Martin, one of the other Irish girls who played the grand final last year, and then this year was kind of in and out of the team, and on the day of the grand final didn't actually get to tog out. So I was just, you know, you're quickly aware of how privileged you are, and even obviously you're on a winning team, everyone's part of it, and she contributed so well throughout the year. But just even being able to, you know, compartmentalize your own kind of feelings and be able to look at it more holistically, I think is probably better. I'm sure
it teaches you to be very resilient, because I suppose you can't always be number one. You can't always get everything you'd always dreamed of. But I hear you had to, am I right in saying, did you have to still train for a while afterwards?
Yeah. We trained for a good few weeks after it, before the girls went off to their camp in France the week before. And then they went off, and we went over, and everyone that, like the non-selected players, we went over and supported them, and we had a great crack, great night out in Paris. So supporting them. But yeah, it was definitely a weird kind of moment watching them and stuff like that. But like, was so proud of how they did, and even obviously qualifying after the heartbreak of missing out in qualification before as well. And I suppose I was only like very somewhat involved in that whole kind of journey for them, so like it was cool to be part of it, and to see it, and to see it maybe on the latter end of the journey, if that makes sense.
You say that, but I suppose it's easy to sit and be like you're as much part of the team as anybody else, but you were as well. And I'd say with making the decision to do it, I remember hearing you say, I love the quote, you lose the chances you don't take, is that right? So like, I'm assuming you've no regrets over doing it at all, or would you ever?
Absolutely not. And like, you learn so much about yourself, and you're forced to, and you kind of, it was interesting to just see the dynamic of another team and how it works, and you kind of get to, there's always certain personalities and roles that are filled on each team, and I think, you know, that's evident in the teams I've been in. But just being able to switch and kind of look at things people do that I liked, things people do that do I do that? Do I like that? And be able to go back to whatever team it was I went back to, like whether it was North Melbourne or now Meath, and be able to be a better teammate to the girls on the team.
And would you say you've closed the door on Rugby Sevens, or is it still open?
No, I wouldn't say it's fully closed. I think some things just didn't pan out as they maybe had been promised. So that's the scenario I was in. But like, I'm content with my decision.
Yeah, it's great to think that even though it didn't work out the last time, that you wouldn't like call it a day with it. You'd still be interested in going back. What is next for Vikki Wall?
So I'm gonna finish out this year with Meath, so to whatever stage of the championship we get to, and then I have signed a 3-year contract over with North Melbourne, so I'll be going back over to them. So yeah, looking forward to it. Obviously privileged to be able to play with Meath and enjoy this year, and then be bit more Oz based.
Yeah. What is the breakdown with going over and coming back? Is it how many months would you do over there, or does it just depend? Or
well, after this season with me, there'll be a bit more full time over in Australia. Yeah, they've been good of letting me kind of come back and play for the last few years when I've been able to do both, but the season is getting longer over there as well.
Yeah, the league's been pushed.
It's been they're kind of coinciding with the men's a bit more, so there'll be a few more overlapping games and stuff like that, so it'll continue to come forward over the next few years.
Yeah, it sounds like to sign a 3-year contract's amazing. And like, would young Vikki Wall, who had maybe dropped out of that course and didn't really know what was coming, like, would you think she would believe what's going on now, like the way you are in your position you are in sport?
No, I was only laughing because last year me and my dad went over to Barcelona to watch the Barcelona and Chelsea women's, the Champions League, and then it's actually a rematch this year, so we were looking at going over to the home leg in London. But I used to be like obsessed with Chelsea when I was younger, but I just used to be like so, like I used to say to my dad, like, why can't I watch, like the women's game, but like it wasn't accessible.
Yeah.
But I used to be obsessed with Michael Essien, like as in I just,
oh my god,
Michael Essien,
popular as well. Yeah.
And
I tried to get him to do one of them cameos for me once, but it cost like, I don't know how much it was,
and didn't get the video back. So like, to be able to say that I am a professional athlete and like play sport professionally, like as in when you reflect on it, is class. Like it's so cool, and I didn't even think that was an option, and it's definitely not in a sport I foresaw for myself, because obviously I didn't really know about AFLW when I was growing up, but to be given that chance and to like the experience I've had and the travel in the last few years, and just even like the people first and foremost, like it's pretty cool
to be able to turn your, it's kind of cheesy to say, but your passion and your hobbies from when you're a child into your job. It's just incredible. It's kind of similar, not similar what has happened to me, but in a way that like something I always dreamt of doing, I'm doing now. Yeah. So it's nice to know.
You're lip syncing from a young age.
Lip syncing from a young age. We'll call it performing. Acting. It's a fancy term for it, but like, there's nothing even more inspiring for young girls. Do you see yourself as an inspiration to young girls? I probably don't like saying that really, but like, do you hear about that, or does anyone ever come up and say it to you?
Yeah, it's a funny one, because we did a workshop with the IRFU with the men's and women's sevens, and her name is going to escape my mind now, but she spoke about her thing was, she was like, oh no, it's class, like you're all professional athletes, and everyone's like, oh no, like it's fine or whatever, and she was like, it's such a false modesty from Irish people of avoiding the topic and kind of not owning their superpower or whatever it is in, like, if it's sport, if it's music, like yourself performing. And I think we do that sometimes. And like when we went over to Australia, like I know a few of the Irish girls spoke about it, of their confidence, and like, it's not an arrogance, but it's they back themselves, and they'll talk about the top 5 players in the league and who's the best and who's this, and I think we have a reluctance to do that sometimes.
It's an Irish thing though,
it is an Irish thing, so I think it's that kind of balance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because you don't want to seem, and sometimes I think especially with females, if you're saying something like that, you nearly seem like you're arrogant, and there's this fine line between it. But I suppose the mentality to go in and win games, you can't go in thinking we might not get this, the negative attitude. You have to believe.
Yeah, because that's the thing, I think, and obviously, like, let's talk, like, if you're talking about county football, like, obviously when you line out every week, you obviously don't think you're not better than the person you're playing beside, or that your team isn't better than them, because otherwise, like you said, you wouldn't think you're going to win. But it's just fine-tuning all of that, and kind of like, I think confidence in women's sport and everything like that is a whole other topic. But,
it is, but it's getting there. I think there's work to be done on it, but like, I think people like yourself and different others will be very inspiring in that form. The last thing I'm going to do, Vikki, is Trapped with Vikki Wall, and this is to show that even though I'm not a professional athlete, I have some similarities with Vikki Wall. I just want to get that out there. So Number 1, we both like Peugeots.
Yeah, big fan of
We
Peugeots.
both have the same car, yeah. Number 2, I spotted Vikki Wall in Aldi twice. So in Blanche.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I do my weekly shop in Aldi. Yeah, can't deny that one.
I was looking in and I was like, where's the protein? Where's it?
Checking out the basket contents.
Yeah. I've done a wee bit of research, chatting with one of your friends. I hear you like an early bedtime.
I do, yeah. I am unfortunately renowned for, I would love to be in my bed by 9:30 every night if I could.
She said if you're booking dinner that they have to work around you.
That could be one of many people now, like, as in, I sound like I'm literally the most boring human alive here. That's when I'm in season and being strict on myself. But yes, I do love an early bedtime.
So do I. I like dressing up as characters, but I hear you once dressed up as Santa Claus for something or other, or maybe the Tooth Fairy.
I know exactly who you're talking to now. Yeah, I think Peter in the Becks in Meath, the pub in the middle of nowhere, has been very, very kind to us. And if there's a costume past maybe 12 o'clock, like Cinderella, I like to maybe bring out 1 or 2 of the costumes.
Well, I have plenty of costumes if you want to borrow any. And for the purpose of the people at home, I don't have photo evidence of this. I didn't get it. And the last thing, we'll see if she'll do this one. I'm a Gaeilgeoir. I love, and so are you, I hear. But I hear you do a great rendition of Is She Suzu?
Yeah, no, I think I'll save that one for past a few Pinot Grigios.
Okay, finish the sentence then. Is she Suzu ta?
Mommy kangaroo.
Hey, that's everything.